These positions are located in most major U.S. cities, other domestic areas, and foreign countries that need DEA support in combating drug trafficking and violent crime. Since its establishment in 1973, the DEA, in coordination with other federal, state, local, and foreign law enforcement organizations, has been responsible for the collection, analysis, and dissemination of drug-related intelligence. The role of intelligence in drug law enforcement is critical. The DEA Intelligence Program helps initiate new investigations of major drug organizations, strengthens ongoing cases and subsequent prosecutions, develops information that leads to seizures and arrests, and provides policymakers with drug trend information upon which programmatic decisions can be based. The DEA's intelligence program has grown significantly since its inception, from only a handful of intelligence analysts, or IAs, in the domestic offices and headquarters in 1973, to over 700 IAs worldwide today. DEA's intelligence program encompasses a wide variety of investigative, Liz wrote this and she didn't know I couldn't say that, and strategic intelligence assignments spanning the globe. Today's panelists collectively have over 40 years of experience with the DEA. They will share their expertise and discuss their respective roles in the intelligence division of the DEA. We will learn how they came to work at the DEA, their current roles in the agency, and their day-to-day activities on the job. Please help me to welcome 4 members of our intelligence division. First, we have Erin Hurwitz, Intelligence Research Specialist. He began his intelligence career as a crime analyst with the Center for Law Enforcement Analysis and Training in Dayton, Ohio in 2012, providing analytical support for gang cases to federal, state, and local law enforcement. He joined DEA in 2014 and currently studies domestic fentanyl and heroin trends. In his position, he provides DEA officials and other U.S. government policymakers with high-priority strategic intelligence analysis on the drug trade in the United States and assesses the changing dynamics of the counter-drug situation across the country. Mr. Hurwitz is the lead writer and lead briefer for DEA's 2018 National Drug Threat Assessment, which provides an in-depth assessment on complex topics that impact national-level, high-priority drug issues, including major trafficking organizations, smuggling routes and methods, drug-related crime and violence, and other pertinent issues that impact U.S. national security. Intelligence Staff Coordinator Carrie N. Pratt started her DEA career in 2006 as the Senior Intelligence Research Specialist assigned to the Intelligence Division's Policy and Liaison Section at DEA headquarters. During that time, she served as the sole analyst assigned to the Centers for Drug Information, or CDI program, and the Reports Officer, RO program. She is currently assigned to the National Office of National Security Intelligence, ONSI, Intelligence Community, IC, Integration Section. In her current role, she serves as a faculty member and the DEA chair at the National Intelligence University, NIU, in Bethesda, Maryland. Prior to reporting to ONSI, Ms. Pratt was the Intelligence Group Supervisor for the Chicago High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area, HIDTA. From 2008 to 2012, Ms. Pratt was assigned the Atlanta Field Division, where she was a Strategic and Operation Intelligence Analyst. Over her DEA career, Ms. Pratt has supported several multi-jurisdiction and international drug and money laundering cases. She has liaised with other federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies, members of the intelligence community, private sector entities, and foreign counterparts to enhance the exchange of law enforcement information, provide intelligence collection, and support DEA's mission and programs domestically and internationally. Carrie N. Thompson, Executive Assistant to the Chief of Intelligence, began her career with the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration as an intelligence research specialist in September 1998, assigned to the Detroit Field Division office. Over the course of her career, IRS Thompson has served in 3 overseas posts: Bogota, Islamabad, and Brussels, and multiple assignments at DEA headquarters. In March 2018, Ms. Thompson was promoted to Section Chief of the Intelligence Division's Policy and Strategic Planning Unit, and shortly thereafter transferred to her current position as the Executive Assistant to the Chief of Intelligence. Prior to joining the DEA, Ms. Thompson completed internships with the White House and the Office of the Lieutenant Governor of Indiana. William Trull is an intelligence research specialist assigned to the Research and Analytics Unit as part of the Data Management Section in the Office of Special Intelligence, Merrifield, Virginia. The NSD section provides support through the advanced use of intelligence, data, and geospatial analysis in order to perform detailed analysis of large data sets. Further, Mr. Trull provides geospatial support in the form of maps, charts, range analysis, surveillance support analysis, and training on geospatial programs such as ArcGIS. Prior to joining NSD, Mr. Trull was assigned to the Diversion Intelligence Unit as part of the Field Support Section at DEA headquarters here in Arlington. During his time in the unit, he was responsible for authoring reports and providing comprehensive briefings detailing the diversion of controlled prescription drugs, as well as the shipment of precursor chemicals into the United States. Working in conjunction with his unit's many counterparts, Mr. Trull has provided investigative and strategic support on a multitude of cases, covering DEA offices both domestic and foreign. Prior to his assignment in diversion intelligence, Mr. Trull worked in the Strategic Intelligence section, in which he covered drug trafficking and trends in the Eastern Hemisphere. And the last person I'm introducing is our panel moderator today, Liz Maurer, or Elizabeth Maurer if we're being formal. She's the Curator of Education here at the DEA Museum, where she develops public programs that interpret the history of the DEA and the execution of DEA's mission for the benefit of public health and safety. Take it away, Liz.
Thank you, Lori. I'd like to welcome everyone to our program today and to our outstanding panelists who have a wealth of information to share. When we get towards the end of the program, we are going to make a question time available to you all, and I will give you instructions then as to how you can ask a question. And our live stream audience will also have an opportunity to email questions during the program that will be asked at the end, and you can find the email address on the deamuseum.org website by following the link to the program that's on the home page. So I know everyone's first question is, tell me what an intelligence analyst does.
I'll start it off. If you want to look at what an intelligence analyst does, you can put it into three broad categories. That would be tactical, strategic, and operational intelligence. So your tactical intelligence is going to be your immediate assistant to the agent or officer in the field. That's going to be like a database check or finding a picture of an individual. And then you have operational intelligence, and that's supporting a case that's a long-term investigation. And then lastly, there's strategic intelligence, and that's the intelligence that's reported in the National Drug Threat Assessment. Those are your trends, your abuse stats, things like that that can be given to policymakers as well as decision makers about the drug threat that we're facing.
And if I can add, when you look at DEA as an intelligence program, over the course of your career, you're probably going to do all three, and you may even do all three within one day. Every day can be very different depending on what you're focusing on at that time, and over the course of your career, you're going to have a taste of each one of those things, and you can find and what you enjoy and learn about things that you didn't necessarily know that you could do, but you will find yourself in very unique situations that you probably didn't think you would.
So you have a very interesting job because you have a lot of variety in the kinds of things that you do. And I'm curious as to how you all became interested in coming into this career at DEA and then what you had to do to prepare for that. I guess we'll start with Carrie.
So I came to DEA right out of university. I graduated from the University of Notre Dame in 1998. My background there was really on the international affairs side. So when I was looking for a career, I was interested in federal service, and I was looking at those agencies where I could be overseas and be in that overseas environment. And I was lucky enough to end up at DEA and be able to spend about half of my career overseas.
Yes, in my case, I was a community college instructor for roughly 5 or 6 years, in which I taught public speaking and also was a writing tutor as well. And I wanted to do a job in which I can use my abilities as a public speaker and also as a writer. And also, most importantly, I wanted to enter public service. And DEA presented this opportunity, and I applied, and the rest is history.
So I graduated from Ashland University in 2011 with degrees in Spanish and criminal justice. So I was very interested in getting a job in the criminal justice system and working on this kind of problem. Out of college, I worked as a juvenile corrections officer, worked as a youth advisor, until finally I kind of got my first taste of being an analyst in the world of criminal justice, working for the Dayton Police Department as a crime analyst. And at that time, I was able to apply to be a DEA intel analyst and came here, and then, so same thing as well. I was looking for something different, looking to get into public service, looking for a way to sort of give back and to have, a meaningful career.
I too have a degree in criminal justice, and I had the privilege of working for several agencies before coming to DEA. But I was exposed to a task force environment where you're working with other agencies, and DEA and the DEA mission really stuck out to me, and I knew I wanted to be a part of DEA. So, over several years of applying, I finally was able to obtain a job with DEA.
So Erin and Will are the two most recent folks to have gone through that application and recruitment process. Do you have any particular insight as to what that was like, or what people might expect if they were going to be doing that themselves?
Do you want to go first? You want me to go?
Please, Will.
Sure. The recruitment process itself, it is a process. It takes time. Please keep that in mind when you are applying. When that phone call does come and you finally do become an intel analyst, Quantico is the first step for intel analyst. The program can range anywhere from 9 up to 14 weeks. The curriculum is always changing. It's always revamping. It's always getting better. Our particular class, Erin and I did the same class. We went through Quantico in 2014. It was 11 weeks long. I think the best advice I can give to anyone going through Quantico or preparing to go through Quantico is go in with an open mind and also be ready to learn. The most important thing to remember is that you're going to be working with people there who you'll be working with the rest of your career. Be friendly, make contacts, make associations, and also make a name for yourself. You want people to remember you as someone who will get things done, and get things done quick, and get things done well.
Yeah, I would echo very similar sentiments to Will's, and that definitely going to Quantico, it is an experience. You're coming from your own professional environment. You're getting together with people who have a variety of levels of experience. Some people who may have had 10, 15 years experience, either working in criminal justice or working in other fields. You may have people with international affairs backgrounds or different backgrounds. So there's a learning process and there's an education process, and everyone coming together and learning from each other, and everyone kind of starting again at a base level and an understanding and the curriculum. It's all designed around just providing you the absolute fundamentals that you need to work as a DEA analyst, from things like learning how to write effectively, learning how to speak publicly, learning how to write reports. In that, no matter what the coursework is, right, we have great instructors, we have good counselors, and the point of the program is just to get you prepared so that when you graduate and you're ready to go to whatever office it is you've been assigned to, that you're ready to start your job as a DEA analyst. So absolutely go in with an open mind, go in with as few preconceptions as you can, and just go in with an attitude of, I'm here to make contacts, I'm here to make lifelong friends, and ultimately I'm here to work hard and start my new career.
I think another important thing to remember about Quantico is that even though the curriculum may seem difficult, may be difficult, everyone there, from yourself to your fellow classmates to the agent class to the diversion classes up to the special agent in charge, everyone there wants you to succeed. So remember that. Use all tools necessary, use all resources. Everyone there wants you to succeed and wants you to do well and wants you to be part of the intelligence program.
Carrie, if I can ask you to talk about the importance of networking across the course of your career at DEA.
Well, we're a relatively small program if you think about it, and about a little over 700 people. So odds are you're going to know most everyone in the intelligence division, and it's really important, like I said, to establish that base at training, right? That's your core. I still keep in contact 20 years later with the people who I was in training with. And then as you move throughout the course of your career, because we do have an aspect of mobility to our career. We want you to take different assignments. We want you to move to experience life in a division, in our domestic field divisions. Take the opportunity to go overseas if that works for you. Come to headquarters, see these things, experience these different assignments. And in each point, you're going to be meeting intelligence analysts. You're going to be meeting special agents, diversion investigators, everyone who forms a part of our team that's out there working cases, our professional and administrative support personnel who form the backbone and help make things go in our agency. Every time you move to a different point, you'll be meeting people, talking to people, making those partnerships and working together. Because it really is, DEA, we're pretty small when you look at the scope of federal agencies, and to make things go, we all have to work together, and we each play a very important role.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that this is a team that you're working with across the different divisions of DEA. And I'm sure our audience would love to hear about how you are working as a team, or where a case starts, or how you come into building cases and working on cases.
Well, a case can start from any point. It can start from information obtained from a confidential informant, or it can come from a previous case where you have latent information that you want to go ahead and take to the next level. So there's not one answer on how a case can start, but what you want to do as an intel analyst is give the bigger picture. Your job is to see the big picture of the investigation, to give those leads and those the information that will expand the case beyond what the agent sees. We like to say that the agent kind of has tunnel vision, and he's focusing on the right now, the targets that are right in front of him, and the analyst has the broader picture where we're able to see all things around and give additional leads, find assets and resources to expand the investigation.
So do you ever work with people in different offices, like whether locally or around the world, or are you working with other law enforcement entities and agencies?
I'd say yes and yes. So so almost daily, as a part of our jobs here, I'm in contact with people from around our different DEA field divisions. Some of my friends and contacts who I met in the academy who are in different field divisions, contacts that I've made throughout my career, and checking in with those folks who have the ground level information on what are you seeing, what's going on, talk to me about your cases, talk to me about the things that stick out to you or that are weird or that don't make sense, that maybe you just don't have time to track down, but also thinking beyond DEA and trying to maximize, as Carrie noted, DEA being a small agency and us having to make the most of our resources, working with our partners and other law enforcement agencies, making useful professional contacts, and people saying, you're also studying gangs, you're studying cocaine trends or fentanyl trends or whatever. What are you seeing? What am I seeing? Let's talk, let's share information, let's figure out how we can make all our agencies better, and find out how we can make the best possible case or present the best possible report to a policymaker that addresses what's going on.
When you look at it, DEA is a single agency, mission agency, so we are supposed to investigate Title 21, which is the Controlled Substance Act. But when you look at drugs has a connection to other crimes. So looking at it just in that simplistic context, what else are we connecting to? We're connecting to general crimes with FBI, or immigration violations with Homeland Security. So we're always reaching out and working with other agencies. And then we also work with our state and local partners who are those real people with the ground level information.
So Erin, you're working on the threat assessment. So who's the audience for that particular intelligence product?
So it kind of serves for a variety of audiences. On the one hand, we like to look at it as kind of this comprehensive reference material, reference guide, where it's got anything you might need to know in sort of a given year of what's happened in the world of drugs, what's happened in the world of transnational organized crime. So we've found the report being used by local community leaders who just need to educate principals, parents, and people on this is what's happening, these are the drugs that are in your communities, used by sheriffs and chiefs of police to see how do your trends match up with what's happening nationally, all the way up to the administrator of DEA, other policymakers and other decision makers throughout the government who are interested in what's the picture look like of drugs coming into the U.S., what's the abuse look like, what are the threats, and what are we doing to try to stop those. So it's kind of a range of audiences. So to do that, we have to take in information from our state and local partners. We have to take in information from as many of our DEA field divisions and FBI and CBP and also in public health division, and trying to take all of that together and utilize all our resources and work with all of our partners to kind of put this report together.
So that's a very complicated job in a very complicated, ever-changing world. And so I wonder if you could talk a little bit about how things have changed since you've been with DEA
The longest.
the longest, as some of the changes that you have seen
Right.
over time.
I mean, some things will always stay the same, and that is, our number one goal when we're working on the field is to, to arrest, put cases together, successfully prosecute, and to put those targets behind jail. That never changes. How we do it has changed as technology has changed. I mean, I'm sure, I've seen it. My children, they're on their iPads, they're doing all sorts of things that I never would have dreamed of. And criminals are no different. Hopefully my children won't turn into one. But, but criminals have, take that same technology that we use every day, and now as law enforcement, we're having to adapt to that ever-changing situation as well. We as an intelligence program also have to evolve from, focusing, in the days of where we were just looking at, telephones and those sorts of things. Well, most bad guys no longer have a hardline telephone where they're talking. They're using WhatsApp. They're using, sophisticated encrypted technology. And so we not only have to know about it and have the information to let us know what they're using, but we have to know how to exploit those things to attack it.
Absolutely. As Intel analysts as well, we have to keep on top of the technology. As Carrie mentioned, things are constantly changing. Right now, of course, we're in the midst of the opioid crisis. We as Intel analysts, specifically in the strategic mindset, have to keep an eye on that. However, we also have to be aware of what's next. We have to be ahead of the curve, so to speak. Technology is advancing. How can we stay one step ahead of that technology so we're not chasing the people? We're actually ahead of them and able to stop them beforehand.
Absolutely.
So it sounds like technology has had a big impact on both sides of the equation with how DEA does its job, and also the people who are the bad guys or the traffickers.
Very much
so. And because it's so highly specialized, is there an opportunity at DEA for somebody who wants to become very specialized in a particular area of intelligence?
Well, generally speaking, as we mentioned at the very beginning, since you're doing all three types of intelligence, you do need to be a sort of a well-rounded person and be able to adapt to those different scenarios. But certainly as a program, we recognize that when you're talking about finding Bitcoin or other sorts of new sort of technologies as they evolve, there's going to be opportunities for you to become adept in those technologies, trainings that we'll be offering, and we'll be constantly updating our training regimen for our new employees so that they can go into the field and take care and attack those kinds of cases and provide cutting edge support. But certain things like being able to write and critical thinking will be enduring requirements, no matter what the sort of technical skills that are out there.
Absolutely. Take advantage, as Carrie mentioned, the trainings. They're free. They're offered to us as analysts. They're simply meant to advance our careers. By all means, take advantage of them. Very important.
And so let's talk about the skills that you brought, and what are the most critical skills that you call on a daily basis?
we already touched on it, the critical thinking piece, to be able to look at a piece of information and expand upon what it actually means to your investigation and the benefit of that information. And some people think of critical thinking as like, oh, you know, of course I think analytically, but not everyone does. So honing in on that skill set will take you a long way.
Yeah, and along with that, I look at it as the critical thinking and the clear thinking then leads to clear writing, which is sort of the other big tenet that we do here. We write reports, whether they're sometimes strategic reports, things that get posted online, but we also write reports of investigation, many of which will eventually wind up in a court of law in front of a judge, where we're not always the person there to be able to defend what it is that we said. So the importance of being able to clearly show a train of thought where you checked this information or you found this individual, and piece A in this case led you to piece B in the case, which led you to the end of it, and being able to put all of that in writing in a clear, concise, and effective manner so that someone else reading your report, the agent, the prosecutor, whomever, can clearly look at it and can clearly understand this is what was meant to be conveyed. So thinking, writing, speaking, all those sort of basic skills, as Carrie mentioned, are extremely important to be an analyst in DEA.
Absolutely. Briefing skills as well. Throughout your career, you'll brief special agents, diversion investigators, other intelligence analysts. You will brief anywhere from section chiefs to the very highest levels of government and military, both internal DEA and external DEA. And also, you may even be able to brief in a courtroom as well, so be prepared for that.
So, would you say that your jobs have become easier or harder over time?
Much more complicated.
Yeah.
Certainly, even just working what most people would consider, a basic sort of go out, have the agent buy drugs, identify that target and move from there. But, criminal networks are very complex. The world of technology, communications, the internet, the dark web, all those things have made these cases all that much more, technical to attack and, more complicated. You're never just going after a group in isolation. Your overriding goal is to identify the entire network and to then connect the networks to the networks, because I think as we've certainly seen, these networks connect to networks, and trying to unravel that is certainly a very complex task.
Yeah, I mean, I think one way to think about it is that when people think about all the fantastic advances in technology that we have at DEA, whether the tools that we have, the technologies we have to be able to work closer together, to liaison better, for every piece of technology that we have, the bad guys have that same technology.
And so, then some.
And sometimes a step or two ahead of where we are, because they don't have to abide by the laws that we do. So it's always challenging as it goes to knowing what are we doing now, and also understanding what are the vulnerabilities, what are the emerging trends, the emerging technologies and things that we need to be aware of to figure out how we're going to continue to combat these threats.
Anyone else like to add to that?
That's great.
All right. So, in case there's anybody who's here today, either here or on our live stream audience, who's thinking of applying to DEA to become an intelligence analyst, is there any particular advice that you would give them of what they should be doing now to prepare, or how they can make their resume stand out on USA Jobs?
Well, read the announcement. Read the announcement, and because you will see in the announcements that they have a listing of particular skills. And so you need to make sure that whatever paperwork, your resume that you have, you're meeting those requirements, because that's what they're looking at, to make sure that particularly if you are applying under what we call a Schedule A, which is looking for particular special skills like a language or a technical skill, you have to be able to show that in order to move on with the process. So read the announcement, understand the skills and qualities that we are looking for, and just be persistent in that application process. When I came on board, the whole process took, close to about 18 months. And so it can be shorter than that, it could be longer than that. So, you know, it's one of those things where you just have to, if this is what you want to do, you know, take that goal and to follow it through.
Absolutely. I think the four of us up here would probably agree that writing skills are the #1 most important thing you can do. Improve your writing any way you can. As Carrie mentioned, any special skills you have, anything that will make you stand out. Foreign language, perhaps HTML or C++, anything that makes you stand out that you think will boost your resume in some capacity, include that. And also finally, be patient, and when you do finally get on, have an open mind. Never at any point in your career will you know everything. I rely on Erin for many things, same
We
as
all
he would
do.
rely on me or Carrie for
Absolutely.
other things as well. Have an open mind and be willing to work together. We can't stress enough, it's a small agency. You will be working together. You will be relying on one another, much more so than other larger agencies.
And I don't know the audience of the stream, but hopefully it's going to reach people before they want to apply, and maybe even in college. I would say start preparing yourself for the application process. The things that you are doing in college, be mindful of the career that you want to get into. This is law enforcement, this is the Drug Enforcement Administration, and I won't really go into details, but just be mindful of the activities that you are engaging in, because it can come up in your background investigation and be a factor that will prohibit you from getting a job with DEA or some other federal agency.
Particularly what you post online.
I think that's probably good advice for anyone thinking about any career.
That's it. Anyone
down the line.
wanting to do any professional
Yes,
career.
any
absolutely.
professional careers, be very mindful how things may look years from now, right? And the decisions that you make, right? Right. So I have had the privilege of being able to ask them lots of questions today and even before today. So I'd like to open up the floor to questions to the audience. Kenna is over here, and if you have a question, if you can raise your hand, she will bring the microphone to you. And I'm going to insist that you use the microphone so that the folks who are watching the live stream and will watch the archived version later can hear, because otherwise it won't come through on over the internet. And if you are watching on the live stream and have a question, please email it to the address that is on deamuseum.org, and Kenna has access to that, and she can read those questions.
Hi guys, that was very well done. I stayed awake for the entire thing. When I first applied to DEA, I was doing it with a typewriter and SF-71, and that was brutal. However, the process now is totally impersonalized, totally dehumanized, and it's done through what the OPM website or USA Jobs or whatever that is to do that. And I haven't had to do that, but I know that it's very stressful in that the human element doesn't come into this process until you're way far down the road. And when did any of you actually ever speak to anyone, or what kind of indicators did you get that they were even actually thinking that you might be an asset to the organization along the way? Because I do remember that I got called after I had been here for about a year by somebody else on another job that I had applied for, and says, "Are you still interested in that job?" And that was 3 years later. So how about that? How long did it take, or what kind of feedback did you get along the way that made you think that you were ever going to get get hired on here.
Well, yes, as you mentioned, the advertisements are on OPM or usajobs.gov. We use OPM, and the process was built that way, and as you said, it's kind of an impersonal process, but that is to ensure that there's no favoritism of candidates, that everyone has a level playing field, that everyone has the same opportunity to get through the process. I know that it can be frustrating for those of us who, let's say, we know someone who would be a great analyst. We want to help them out, but we have to make sure that everyone gets a free, fair, equal opportunity to get into the field. I think for most people, your first interaction with a DEA employee, if you have made it, if your application looks good, if you've made it through some of the exams that we have to take, will be your interview, actually, and it's an oral assessment. I wouldn't even call it an interview. So that's going to be the first sort of opportunity you will have to interact with DEA personnel, to come and for them to ask you some questions, for you to ask them questions. And that's, I think, kind of your first indication as to where you are in the process. Every field division has a recruiter as well. So if you are interested in applying, you can talk to that recruiter. If you have applied, you can reach out to that recruiter. Then they can try to let you know what your status is.
I can speak from experience from my personal timeline. Now, please know no two timelines are the same. I applied on USA Jobs. It would have been late 2012. I want to say December 2012. Early 2013, I had to take my first test. That was in the DC area. I flew out to take that first test. After that, I received another email asking if I wished to continue in the process. After that, we had a government shutdown, unfortunately, the one in 2013, so that did not help things. After that, I received another email asking if I'd like to further continue. Yes, absolutely I do. After that, however, I got invited to my interview. That was a panel interview, a 3-person interview over in Merrifield, Virginia for my particular one. Yours may be in the field division for which you apply. It may be at headquarters. It could be anywhere. After that, it was a few months later, I received a conditional offer. After the conditional offer, which I believe came in February 2014, I received a phone call, in my case, for the final offer and to come to Quantico. That would have been July 2014. I started DEA, I started actually 2 weeks before Quantico, so I started August of 2014, and my BERS class, BERS 71, started just after Labor Day, September 2014. So from application to putting my foot in the door in Quantico, it was December 2012 to September 2014. Please do not take that as what everyone's process will be like. That was just personally from my experience.
So yeah, so Will and I were in the same BERS class, so our timelines were similar. So I'll take it back to something that we talked about earlier, in that because the process is designed to ensure that everyone has an equal chance, it means that reading the job announcement closely and carefully, it makes sure that that you are tailoring your resume, that you are highlighting your skills, your talents, your qualifications. That makes it all the more important that it's not as simple as picking up the phone and saying, hey, Carrie, I know someone who would make a really good analyst. Can we hire them? That it's really important to hone your resume to make sure what makes you unique, what makes you stand out based on the qualifications for the position. How can I be an asset to DEA? And then, as Will said, if your first interaction, your first sort of face-to-face is going to be an interview, it makes the interview that much more important, and that this is your time. You've gotten this far in the process. You're going to sit in front of several DEA supervisors who are going to do this oral assessment for you. Take that opportunity to really wow them and to really show, these are my skills. This is why I'm qualified for this job. This is why you want me as a DEA analyst. But I'll echo again, just persistence, the same thing. The number of emails continue to say, hey, we can't offer you a job right now. We can't continue the process right now, but let us know if you want to keep going, because we'd love to have you. We'd love to have you keep going. And so as much as those can be frustrating at times, and as much as, depending on what job you have at the time, whether you're gainfully employed full-time with somebody else, whether you're job hopping or job hunting, that at the time, that know that it can take a long time. So prepare yourself for what that is and be prepared that you may need to be having another job or you may need to do something else, but that the persistence does pay off.
Yes.
And that once you get through the process and once you finally, same thing, I think it was around July as well that I got my final letter and I had that final phone call, and I can say that, definitely the payoff was worth it. So it takes some persistence, it takes some time to review the announcements and make sure that you're putting your best foot forward and you're representing your best self, and to do the assessments and to do the testing. It takes time and it's a hassle, but that if this is something that you really want, that you really think that a career in law enforcement, that a career in government is worth it for you, then you just have to do it because the reward at the end of the day is worth it.
Ultimately, we've all gone through it. We know what it's like. We know the frustrations. Is the payoff worth it? Absolutely. Absolutely, it's worth it.
It was mentioned earlier that there are intelligence research specialists at DEA headquarters. There are intelligence research specialists in our domestic field divisions around the United States, and that there are intelligence research specialists assigned to DEA offices overseas. Can you give us a sense of how the job duties differ depending on where the intelligence research specialist is assigned? What's a day in the life, if you will, for someone working at headquarters versus someone working in Kansas City versus someone working in Kabul?
I know Erin's spoken a bit about sort of the strategic side of the house. I'll briefly sort of touch in the foreign environment. That also can sort of greatly depend on the size of the office. In Bogota, Colombia, for example, we have a very large presence. So you're going to be a part of an intelligence group, much more sort of a traditional experience where everyone has, their different cases that they're working, and it's very much focused and similar almost to a field division in the United States. Or you could be in a very small office where it is yourself plus maybe 2 agents and an administrative professional in the office. And there you are it's like to say, jack of all trades. You've got your Girl Scout knife and you're attacking whatever problem that you have that day, either meeting with the counterparts, dealing with something at the embassy, meeting with the ambassador, doing all those sorts of things. So in the overseas environment, it's very, very, it can vary widely, but it's really rewarding. Working with your counterparts overseas, particularly when I worked in Colombia, seeing the successes that they have had over the last 2 decades there in sort of taking back their country in certain respects, and how much it has changed since I was there in the early 2000s to where it is today. It's tremendous to know that you were a part of their success.
And speak to the field, again, like the overseas environment, it depends on what domestic office you're assigned to. For example, when I was managing a group in Chicago, you're dealing with whatever the problems are of your area of responsibility. So in Chicago, as everyone knows, they have a big gang problem. So we're dealing with the local counterparts to help have an impact on their problem. So we're dealing with a lot of immediate impact cases, local impact cases, as well as the long-term investigations that DEA would normally investigate. So it's kind of like every day, no 2 days are the same, so to speak. I guess that's everything with DEA. You can't really say that there's one cookie cutter example of what your day is like, but I will say that this job is not boring at all. You come in and you don't know what to expect, but you do know that at the end of the day you will have had some sort of impact on not your investigation, your community, or whatever the investigation that you are working.
Okay, I think we have a couple questions from email. So the first one is, what are the challenges when state laws are different from federal laws?
So let's see how we're going to do this. So, obviously that, as I mentioned before, your number one goal when you're working in the field and working with the agents in terms of the prosecution, identifying, arresting, prosecuting. We do that via both state laws, sometimes particularly if we're working a case with our state and local task force officers, and we also do federal prosecutions. When those, things differ, it can make things more complicated. But in the end, our goals remain the same no matter what avenue we're using, a state law or a federal law. And a lot of the success to be able to move through those things is based off of your work with your team, your agents, the prosecutors, and building the relationships with all those different stages of the investigation, so that you're not caught by surprise and you're working through any roadblocks for them to address the priorities of wherever you are, the priorities of your community, the priorities of your state and local counterparts, and the priorities of your DEA office.
And one other question from email. What would you suggest is the best way for intelligence research specialists from other agencies to be able to reach out and to build relationships with DEA analysts in their respective field offices?
Oftentimes we attend interagency meetings. Simply reaching out through those, I think, would be number one.
Yeah, certainly in this area, as you said, we do our best as a small agency to, as I said, maximize our resources and maximize our time. So we try to be as proactive as we can in knowing who are our counterparts in other agencies. So, if you know that you're working in Detroit or you're working in Atlanta or you're working wherever, looking, okay, where's the DEA office in this area, or is there going to be some kind of local meeting on cocaine or meeting on opioids? What are the local events where other professionals are going to be? Maybe so you can organize some kind of event or something, social or after hours, anything that you can do. Send an email, pick up a phone, to just reach out. I know it's awkward. I've had to cold call people just to say hi, especially in DEA, to say hi, I'm Erin, I'm from headquarters and I'm here to help. But it's awkward, but you get through it because building the relationship, whether it's inside of my own agency, whether it's to a field office or a state and local office, as Carrie mentioned, all of our goals are the same at the end of the day. So as much as it may be that initial hurdle of I'm in a small field division or a small office where it's myself and only one or two other agents and I don't get out much, or I don't get to know people, or you're in a huge office and you feel like you're working all the time and you don't feel like you have time to make those connections. Collaboration is a skill, and collaboration is something that you have to do intentionally. So just keep that in mind.
I would also say at least the Washington, D.C. area, DEA, we as a whole often make an effort, so to speak, to make sure DEA has a presence in interagency meetings. Simply reach out there, get the phone number, get the email. Absolutely.
I think we have time for one more question. Do we have any more questions in the auditorium? Here in the front.
So I know you've been talking in very general terms, and I understand that there's clearance and all that kind of stuff that we have to think about. But it seems to me that you mentioned, in a way, you're connecting dots that other people may not see that there's dots to connect. Is there a concluded case? I mean, we all love to hear stories, right? Is there a story that you could tell how an analyst connected those dots and we brought down some big person or that? And again, I'm thinking, I understand you can't talk about what you're working on now, but something historical that you can talk about.
Right. Well, I will point out, throughout the course of our program, we've had some tremendous successes because of the intelligence division and because of the role that analysts have played, and it happens every day. I know one of the most important things, given today's opioid crisis, when we have teams out there, we call them document exploitation teams, that are out in the field right now. Just a couple weeks ago, they were out in the LA Field Division to assist in a major operation out there. I think we had between 20 and 30 personnel hitting, going out on search warrants that were going after doctors who were, illegally prescribing medications. They were looking at pharmacies. They were going to the target's houses and things like that. And so we played a really important role in all those enforcement activities that happened just a couple of weeks ago. And without those people, they would never have been able to accomplish, to get into those sites, to take a look at that information, to ultimately be able to use that information for prosecution down the line. And those kinds of teams and that kind of activity is happening every day. So, they're out there, we're out in the force, we're interviewing defendants. I've interviewed defendants, I've been out on warrants. So, those types of activities I think are great successes. And historically, we have, we'll mention Mr. Bly is here today, Dick Bly, who was, one of the founders of our intelligence program. He was part of something that was referred to as Tranquilandia in Colombia, which was a tremendous operation back in the 80s, where the intelligence division played a role in identifying some of the biggest labs at the time downrange, and that wouldn't have happened without the intelligence division.
Well, I want to say thank you to our intelligence analysts who are here today, Kia and Erin and William and Carrie, and the intelligence analysts who are in the audience, and of course Mr. Bly, who's one of the founders of the intelligence division here at DEA. Thank you to the audience for coming. Thank you to the folks who are watching on the live stream. The video and transcript will be posted in a week or two to the DEAmuseum.org website, so you can come back and watch yourselves. Or you can watch later on. And I hope that you all come back in a couple of months so that you can continue to enjoy our series on who we are and what we do as we work our way through all of the different divisions at DEA. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.